Welcome everybody to today's webinar, AI, Machine Learning, and Chatbots, Improving Insurance Profitability and Customer Experience. We have an outstanding panel for you today, and we welcome all almost 1,500 of you on this call. So obviously, this is a subject that's got great interest. The webinar today is sponsored by Insurance Nexus, and it is being produced in conjunction to the lead up to the Insurance AI and Analytics USA Summit, which is on June 27th and 28th in Chicago. And just a word on that, that will be the largest insurance analytics summit in North America. It'll attract over 350 senior executives to explore exactly where and how AI, machine learning, and advanced analytics are impacting the insurance industry. Just a quick stat here to sort of underscore the value and importance of this topic today. 61% of insurance carriers have invested in AI and machine learning in 2017, and over 70% expect this investment to increase in 2018. This is according to the AI analytics survey conducted by Insurance Nexus earlier this year. So again, we welcome you, and now let me also please welcome our esteemed panel. As you can see on the screen, we have Paul Travers from MetLife, Andrew Pelton from Chubb, and Amisha Mean from Nationwide Insurance. I'd like to introduce each of them at a little bit of greater length as they prepare to share some of their comments with us in the order that I just listed them. So if I may, without any further delay, let me begin by properly introducing Paul Travers. Paul is the Senior Vice President of Finance, Technology, Data, and Process at MetLife, and his responsibilities include leading MetLife's deployment of a lean-based continuous improvement initiative supporting the finance transformation program, as well as technology projects and support for finance, actuarial, and procurement globally. I will also add that Paul is a former Lieutenant Commander, Special Duty Intelligence in the U.S. Naval Reserve. And with that, I'd like to ask Paul to begin the webinar by sharing his comments on the subject.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Paul. Before I get into specifically what we're doing at MetLife with regard to artificial intelligence, I want to give you a little bit of a perspective on what we're seeing in the insurance industry in total. In a word, disruption. So whether you're listening to the consulting companies that are telling you this, the media, or watching what's going on in the insurtech world, I think there's general agreement, especially when the CEOs are being polled, that insurance is just ripe for disruption. So we're usually not looked at as technology innovators, but I think we're going to be forced to do that in the very near future. So let's talk about 3 points. Why is that the case, right? Why are we facing disruption? And what does this mean for us? And then finally, what can we do about it, or what should we be doing about it? So why is it the case? In a word, it's data. It's all about data. I jokingly say internally that reports come and go, but it's all about the underlying data. The availability of both structured and unstructured data is unprecedented. Processing and the ability to learn by machine learning methods has really been around for a long time, but coupled with the availability, the processing capability, and lower storage costs, it's really just within the past 2 to 3 years that we're seeing great strides in the artificial intelligence realm. So what does it mean? It means that traditional methods for analyzing data and expecting to draw really robust and insightful analysis is becoming really challenging, especially when you have disparate data sources, and the resources spend most of the time just getting the data without being able to understand what the data represents. Traditionally, we'll use the equation that says data plus rules equals output. And if you're a doctor talking to a sick patient, think if you don't, as that doctor, ask the patient the right question, you're not going to get the right feedback in order to determine how to treat that patient. The same thing is occurring in our data. If we don't know the right question, we're not going to get the right answer. So what can we do about it? So obviously there's a lot of solutions that offer a lower cost approach. Most of these focus on optimizing product pricing or reserving, trying to eke out a little bit more profit. And those are very good solutions. They can often yield pretty good results, but they're actually kind of tactical, right? They don't really attack the business model. They don't really look at it from the top down. So we think back to that equation and we say, do we want to continue doing data plus rules equals output, or do we want to flip that equation and say data plus output actually equals the rules? And in that sense, the rules are much more applicable and extensible to the rest of our data. So when we apply that to both internal, very structured data, external, unstructured data, we also get the ability to look at massive amounts of information. Traditionally, we'll look at the primary drivers of our business, and we'll make assumptions about a lot of things. But with the availability, the processing capability, and the storage costs going down, we have the ability to look at the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary drivers of the business for a much, much more robust analysis, more than likely leading us into areas that we never thought to ask the questions about. So what are we doing at MetLife? MetLife, very old company, very large, 40 plus countries, very international, especially if you've watched MetLife over the past year, divest of the US retail business via the spinoff of the Bright House Financial Organization. We have digital as a primary centerpiece of our corporate strategy. And within that, the group that I support, finance, is really undergoing a multi-year finance transformation where we focus on a number of different aspects of our operating model, but for my domain and relative to this call, mostly on the data. How do we get our data structured in the right dimensions and hierarchies so that we can actually take advantage of these technologies? So I'm happy to say that we've made a lot of progress in that regard. And with regard to artificial intelligence, our approach, in addition to point solutions relative to product pricing and reserving, things of that nature, is to really look at the drivers of the business. So a very dry 10K, 10Q report, if anyone has ever read it, has what's called management discussion and analysis footnotes, which are the result of operations. In layman's terms, what's moving the business? And the process by which we've gone through and analyzed this every quarter and every year has been pretty much the same method and with similar results. So what we're actually doing now is taking massive amounts of external data on hundreds of companies that have filed similar 10K, 10Q results, have also filed their own management discussion and analysis footnotes, consuming that through natural language processing into the AI engine. And then we're taking the internal data, marrying that to that, and in April, we'll have our proof of concept results where that will have generated in parallel to what we're doing through the human process, an expectation of natural language generated results so that we can actually compare the two. The expectation is, based on earlier tests, that we should be very close in terms of the quantification of what's driving the business. But we also expect that in addition to the efficiency gained by doing this through automation, that we would actually see a more robust analysis as to understanding what those drivers of the business are. So we don't really know exactly what we're going to find, but we do expect, again, to have benefits in terms of automation, efficiencies associated automation, but more robustness by using a lot of external data and internal data read through the natural language processing and the output through the natural language generation. So why did we start here, right? This is not a very glamorous place to start, but from a strategic approach, this is the tip of the iceberg. This is where the business results are reported to the public, to the equity analysts. And if we view this as a learning process and want to really leverage what we learn here, we want to work backwards from the summary business results to other aspects of how the business actually operates. We expect that this is just the first step in a very long journey, but we do expect good things. So thanks for the opportunity to share what we're doing. We're very excited about this, and I'll turn it back to Stephen.
Thanks so much, Paul. I appreciate it. We're going to have plenty of time at the end of all of the panelists' comments for Q&A, but if I may, it might be helpful. We've got a large and really diverse audience representing various lines of business in the insurance industry. So if I may just ask Paul, knowing that MetLife has, auto, home, and life segments to it, are your comments and is your group initiative horizontal across all three lines of business?
Yeah, so our businesses are fairly diverse. My organization is finance. For topics on artificial intelligence, we do coordinate across the company. There are other efforts, both in our property and casualty, our investments, and as it was relating to the actuarial space. We do want to see them come together via the learning process. But the one I was describing for finance, because finance is sort of the crossroads of information for the company, and ultimately the face to the street. The one I'm talking about is truly the tip of the business pyramid.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. A couple of housekeeping items before I introduce our next presenter, and that is we've already had a question numerous times about recordings for the webinar. So a full recording of the webinar will be made available to everybody who's registered following the webinar, just to clarify that. Also, I probably should mention that all of our presenters and panelists are going to be participating in the conference that I described earlier, along with many others. So I just want to make sure that was clear. And with that, I think we're ready to move to our second presenter, Andrew Pelton. And Andrew, if I remember correctly, in the real world, you're known as Andy.
That is correct.
Okay, a little bit of background in addition to what is available on the webinar screen here. So Andy is Vice President of Claims Data Analytics Implementation at Chubb, and the Advanced Analytics team is responsible for a wide range of analytics projects. Most are concentrated on leading the interaction between the internal business clients, the modeling resources, and IT to ensure the quality of the predictive analytics tools in the claims environment. With that, Andy, I would ask you to share your comments.
Sure. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you today. So that title, I love to joke about my job title, Claims Data Analytics Implementation, means a whole bunch of things. And in reference to the call today, I would say I want to touch on some stuff that Paul brought up, because I thought it was a great point about disruption, but how disruption really brings that opportunity into the organization, right? So I am responsible for the communication between the predictive modeling team and the business, the statisticians and the IT group, and bringing all those elements together and saying, all right, how can we take this really cool thing that's going on and put it into production, make the customer service better, make the claims process better, those improvements. And when Paul made that great point, right, that the disruption that's going on in the industry right now, I would say is tremendous, and it's providing opportunities that really cross all aspects of the business, right? So when you have something, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what Chubb is doing, but what I really want to emphasize is my point is you don't really know what that disruption is going to cause you, and you really don't know, even when you start one of these proofs of concept, as to what the outcome is going to be. And I would encourage you to think about, kind of the expression of outside of the box doesn't quite meet it in my mind, but that's really, hey, I've got something, I've learned something through AI, I've learned something with the chatbot. What else can I do with it? And so I want to bring a couple of those examples up. And I just want to emphasize from the conference that's coming up in Chicago in June, really what I'm going to talk about is kind of how do you do that communications, right? How do I get the business and the statisticians, the business and IT, to all make sure that they're having the same conversation? Because oftentimes they're saying the same words but not hearing them similarly. And that's a huge issue in when you think about AI and machine learning and chatbots. There's a lot of cool technology, but you've got to make it, right? It's not going to be successful until you can actually bring it into production. And so there's lots of cool things, but how do I use them, right? And so I want to talk about real quick about the chatbot efforts that are going on at Chubb, and then go into a little bit of sentiment analysis that came out of that, right? So everybody, I think the insurance industry, we at Chubb are really concerned with the customer interaction, right? We are, yes, certainly customer focused. How we're going to call you back, how we're going to talk to you, what we're going to do for our customers is very important. But as the base of our customers change and you start thinking about how the younger population wants to consume their information, and do they want to get this information? Do they really want to talk to somebody, or do they want to just go and get their information through Alexa or something like that, right? You start opening up the possibilities of what can you do, right? A virtual assistant chatbot where you can come on to our webpage and start the communication where, you're talking to a chatbot. You might be thinking you're talking to a person, and we're answering questions that are frequently asked, or as we're developing right now, can I get in and sign into my account and ask that question? Well, when is my premium due? And, ultimately, I was talking to one of the innovators in preparation for this call, and he said, look, 2 years from now, you're going to be sitting on your couch and you're going to ask Alexa when your insurance premium is due, and then you're going to have her pay it out of your bank account. And my response to that was, well, I'm never going to do that. But I could see my son doing that. And so as we try to anticipate how our clients are changing and how this chatbot might bring us more information, just looking at the details of what questions they're asking that people are typing in and what we could do with that information, we started to turn that into, well, wait a second, this chatbot really can perform some services that we want to get our customer service reps out of, right? So there's this business to business aspect of the chatbot, excuse me, where someone is coming and wants to confirm insurance coverage or something like that, right? Actually, in that business to business, I'm less concerned about the customer relationship and more concerned about conveying correct information quickly. And if I can take that chatbot and pull those calls away from my customer service rep, giving them more time to spend with their clients, that's a great response. But that conversation started to lead into, oh, you know what? This chatbot would work really well internally so that we could start having our customer service reps who have to cross multiple systems in a, hey, we're trying to make this environment better, but there's still legacy systems everywhere. How do I know? What do I know about each one? How do I get the information that they need at their fingertips so they can answer that call? That's a chatbot as well, right? And so as you start looking at, oh, right, I started the conversation talking about chatbots. Now we're into internal training. We were added to that kind of internal training. We started doing a sentiment analysis, right? Can I start to get, when someone's talking to me on the phone, hey, they really were interested, customer satisfaction. We want to know instantly. Are the customers happy? Are they excited? Are they sad? Are they mad? You can pull all that stuff out now, right? Sentiment analysis. But at the same time, you know what? I can also give you the sentiment analysis of my customer service rep talking back to my client. Oh, well, that's interesting. Hey, by the way, if I'm listening to that call and I'm making those analysis, I can tell you whether someone's happy, upset, getting aggravated. I can also feed, using a process similar to the chatbot, that customer service rep, hey, what question should I ask next? Or did I meet all of my QA requirements of how I should handle a call? And while the call is going on their screen, they're getting presented, oh, yeah, you know what? You didn't do these 3 steps. You missed this one. So they're thinking and looking and going, oh, I had to go back and make that confirmation, or I've got to go back and thank them, right? All of that information, it's really coming out of a disparate sentiment analysis piece and a disparate chatbot piece coming together, where my team is talking to the technical people and the insurance people and the customer service department and asking, what do you need and how can we deliver that information? And that really, that cross-pollination of how all of those pieces fit together, right? And what we can get, what my team actually wants out of all of that is, what other variables can I add into my predictive analytics models that I can get at the instance of that first call, by the questions that are being asked, by the way the customer service rep handled the call, how excited or mad the client was during that call. That's all data that we want to bring back into our predictive analytics so that we can start using it and start predicting outcomes. Something like you want to think about fraud models, and can I use the language and the sentiment and the way it was said in that first call to predict the likelihood that this claim is fraudulent, or there's a problem with the call or something like that. I want SIU to investigate. And it's what I would say is, 12 months ago when we were planning these very disparate projects, there was not the perception that they were going to come together. And I think Paul was describing it, right? There's this set of questions that you never thought to ask, that the innovation that we're getting right now is allowing you to be like, oh, well, can't we bring those pieces together? And I will tell you that the industry is going to be changing. It's going to be changing rapidly. Whether any of you on the call are going to ask Alexa to pay your insurance premium, I don't know. What I do know is that this same conversation 12 months, 18 months from now, from a Chubb perspective, will be completely different, right? The changes and how rapid that new information is coming in and what you can do with it, the companies that are going to win at this are going to be, how do I exploit those questions that I never thought to ask as they come up? I'll stop there because you clearly got me on my soapbox, so I will.
Yeah.
I'll wait for questions.
Thanks. Your excitement and passion came through for sure. We appreciate the comments, and we'll have an opportunity to ask you a lot of questions on the back end. I'm going to move along and introduce Amish Amin. And Amish is the Claims Data Analytics Director at Nationwide Insurance, where he helps the claims department deliver impactful analytics to enhance member experience. Amish, we're looking forward to your comments. Thank you.
Well, I sit in a very interesting role, similar to Andy, where we're tasked with taking a very old process in the claims world and disrupting it using analytics. So some of the things that I want to share with around AI and machine learning is, like Paul said earlier, these technologies have been around for a long time, but now we have the power to do more with it. But a few things that we're seeing as we continue down this journey is our customers, maybe they don't want to use Alexa to pay their bills online, but they still want that touch and feel of an agent. So, how do you manage a multi-user experience? Because there's so many different ways that you can interact with the customer. One of the main things that we are seeing right now is, with all the disruption happening in the industry, there's so many different things you can chase after. How do you define that particular use case? And when you build a use case, a lot of times the people that have the great use cases are not data professionals. And that's really where my role kind of steps in and say, hey, this is something worth chasing after. One of the things that we've recently started to implement is, let's benchmark where we think we can go with AI and machine learning. The idea behind some of these concepts is, there's a time element, and with so much disruption happening right now, we have to spend our resources wisely. And that's where we really are starting to learn more about our business processes, where there are different areas where we could plug in AI, but maybe that's a simple change of our system that can do something slightly differently that will make the member feel like they have a more personalized experience. And as we continue to chase, the holy grail of analytics, you start to realize that there's many different levels of experience that our members are looking to really interact with the customer. One of the last things I really think that is important that Andy touched on is, you have to continue to improve your models. And as you continue to improve your models, what we're starting to find out is a lot of things that were our early indications of success change. So really early on in your defined business case, it's important to understand, what does success look like? Because to quantify ROI and as a lot of the machine learning stuff comes into play is it really worth the investment, and where do you put those resource dollars? The last thing I really want to touch on that Paul mentioned as well is getting all of your data house in order. The more you dig at different questions, the more you realize that that's one of the most important things you can do. As we continue down this journey, we are still exploring, we're a 100-year-old company, and we have many, many legacy systems. So, it's kind of quite challenging at times as you peel that onion to realize where to get all the information at. One of the biggest challenges also is the talent, right? So every company, the moderator opened up with was everyone's making investments in the space, but the people component, how do you find folks that have the natural curiosity to build these things, as well as the business knowledge? And then you marry those two things up to actually deliver a proposition to leadership that says that this was a success story. So those are some of the many challenges that we're seeing right now as we continue down our journey.
Thanks very much. Great comments. Again, we're going to get a chance to dig in a little bit here in our Q&A session. So a reminder to the audience that the website provides for you to submit questions, which we can see and select some of those questions and put them to our panelists to get you some answers. And while you're submitting your questions, I'm going to start the Q&A session, if you don't mind, with a few of my own, sort of the privilege, I guess, of the moderator. And you know, anybody on the call, whether it's be Paul or Andrew or Amish, please feel free to just volunteer to answer. I'm going to ask my first question, which is sort of where does the combination of AI and chatbot use intersect today in your organization? So here I'm looking for sort of practical emerging use of AI and chatbot together. Maybe just to keep this orderly, I'll just go through in order and ask Paul to comment first, and then followed by Andy and Amish.
Sure, thanks. In our client service operations, we are using chatbots to do the things that Andy was describing. But in my perspective, I'm really looking at the business results at the top line. So I think Andy or Amish might be better situated for the answer.
Okay, but the fact that it's in client services is an important response as well. Thanks. Andy?
Yeah, I would say it has to be in client services. And I think the answer I'd give is I tried to articulate a little bit in my comments, right? What we're learning is you can have that internally, right? It providing a chatbot-like thing to my customer service reps so that they're asking those questions, pulling from, as Amish said, right? There are so many disparate systems and so many places that those reps need to be, and to make it look seamless, it's a lot of effort to bring those systems together. But putting a chatbot kind of over the top to find that important piece of information is really, I think that's where the world is going. You have to have them external facing, but internally they could be more valuable right now in the short term until the data is in order and the systems are in order, which may never happen.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, thank you. Amish?
Yeah, so one of the things with chatbots that's interesting is what Andy just touched on. Wouldn't it be great if you call into our service center and you ask a question about a claim, and our customer service reps are using an AI-powered chatbot to say, you know what, we have 10,000 claims historically that happen in this space that we can now give you some suggestions, or here's our preferred vendors that we would like this customer to go to. Yeah. And maybe they need to bring an umbrella because it's going to rain, right? So it's like, you know, how do you give that personal touch that makes people say, oh, I really had a fabulous call with my customer service rep?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just-in-time information is huge.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, so I've got many more questions than we'll ever have time to answer. So I'm going to try and be a little selective and hopefully pick the ones that appeal to most here in the audience. Let me put the question first and then ask each of you to comment. Do you find that an organization, I'm sorry, having a little technical trouble opening my own chatbot. 1 second. Do you find that an organization who desired to use chatbots should start with a very simple implementation, such as contact center activity, and et cetera? In other words, where to begin? And each of you may have different answers, but please share what you can on that question. Paul?
You know, my personal opinion is I think you have to be selective about where you apply them. Certain customers won't actually react well to chatbots, but others will. So I think it's all in starting simple and figuring out the demographics that you're actually applying the chatbot to in order to meet the customer with the experience that they're looking for.
Makes sense. Thanks. Andy?
Yeah, I'd totally agree with that. And I'd say to the whoever really asked the question, we started with our FAQs. We just built a chatbot that answered the FAQs. You could have got them on the website if you'd gone to the frequently asked questions. There were 150 of them. Nobody was scrolling through. You take that. That's what you delivered. then we started to gather the questions they were asking that we couldn't answer. If you asked a question that we couldn't answer, it said, hey, we can't answer that right now. Would you like to talk to a rep? Put the phone number up. But then we started collecting the data, right? Because that led us to where do we go next? What are most people who are using the chatbots to, if you can't answer the question, at least collect what it was, would be my advice.
Okay, great. Thank you. Amish, any comment on that?
Yeah. So I would absolutely tighten up your business case to something a simple solution like that, where because you'll learn so much the first time you put one in, that lesson right there, that's where I come down to narrowing your scope. It's just learning all those data connection points. And like Andy said, one of our early ones is also like an FAQ thing. I mean, but people liked it. Some people hated it. So you just got to kind of feel your audience out.
Thank you. This question is really sort of cultural and strategic at the same time. Here's the question, or the statement and the question. We believe that there will be a lot of changes due to AI and innovation, but there will be a lot of resistance as well within organizations. How can we deal with such resistance or hesitancy to change? I know that's a big, broad question, but you've probably all had your share of experience at it. Paul, may I start with you?
Yeah, this is an area in which I've had a lot of experience. People got to where they are because they operated in a culture and they exhibited certain behaviors that were rewarded, and here they are. And now everything's changing. And the nature of the jobs that we have in financial services in general, specifically in insurance, require different skill sets. And it's going to be one of those moments where people realize that what got them to their current level and to their current position is definitely not what is going to propel them forward in the future. And that's very troubling for a lot of people. So when we look at technologies such as artificial intelligence, I think it's a perception that many people have that it's going to replace them in their job, instead of actually being more of a job aid to help them do the type of job that they never had time to do before. And our philosophy is that this is definitely a job aid. It's definitely going to ensure that we move from low value activities to much higher client valued activities. And I think that's going to change the nature of a lot of people's jobs, but they will be very resistant to that.
Thank you. Andy, comment there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic comment. I think the question itself is a question that anybody on this call should ask in an interview, not yet asked of, but asked of an interview. The model that my team runs by is we're empowering claims professionals with actionable intelligence. That's we keep throwing that out to everybody. It really is. If you can bring the message that we're here to help you, not here to replace you, you'll get a lot of traction in that environment. The other thing that you obviously need is senior leadership that believes in it. And, that was one of the things. I'm not trying to do an advertisement. One of the things that brought me to Chubb is I had spent 20 years in the industry fighting an uphill battle. And in my interviews in Chubb, I encountered an environment where they'd already decided this is what they needed. How can you bring it forward? And when that cultural change happens, it's a phenomenally different experience in trying to get some of this stuff to move forward.
Thanks for that. Amish, what about yourself? Do you have comments on that one?
Yeah, so this is something that I live every day. Every day someone looks at something new that we're trying to put together and says, hey, this won't work, or, and it's exactly what Paul was saying is the industry is changing. One of the biggest things folks can do with AI and even machine learning is the people that are building it, to Andy's point, like my team, we don't have that level of expertise. We're here to enable our claims people so they can make better decisions. We're not here to go do the legwork ourselves. And machines will get closer to it, but you'll still need the human element, and folks really need to embrace the change. But it is definitely a cultural shift, to say the least.
Thanks. I'm going to try something interesting here and just ask each of you for a yes, no, or maybe answer to this related follow-on question. I talk to so many people in the industry. One of the things I hear over and over again regularly is that innovation in an insurance organization is virtually impossible without clear CEO leadership and communication and regular messaging. Do each of you believe that to be true, false, or maybe not. What do you think, Paul?
Absolutely true.
Thank you.
Absolutely
Andy?
true. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
True.
And Amish. All right, good. So it wasn't anecdotal after all. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much. I'm going to switch gears and talk about an area of each of your businesses that are important to all of your companies, and that is the agency force. Is there an opportunity to utilize chatbot functionality to perform agent transactions, such as canceling a policy or requesting, changing, or growing along with these AI advancements? So, the opportunity for AI and chatbots in the agency relationship. Paul, I don't know whether you've got a comment on that or not.
With the spinoff of our Bright House Financial and our agency force going over to Mass Mutual in the U.S., I'm going to defer to the other guys on this one.
Great. We'll get Bright House on the next call. Andy, what about you? What about yourself?
Slightly out of my area as well. I mean, I think absolutely from a chatbot perspective, doing it to get the proofs of insurance, to take that next step from a policy force cancellation, I would say absolutely, but you'd be outside of my realm of could I give you expertise on that.
Fair enough. Thank you for the honest answer. And Amish?
Same with Andy. It's kind of outside my wheelhouse as well. But one thing I will say, when it comes to agency, is you always, if you're an agency channel, you want that personal touch sometimes. So maybe the chatbot may not be the best way. Maybe you can use it to do policy inquiries. When's my next payment due? Things like that. Where's the status of my claim? But when it comes to renewing and non-renewing, I would say, that's definitely up to the agency model, how that should work.
Okay, thank you. Here's the next question. I think we still have a bit of time here. Where's the low-hanging fruit for AI and analytics in each of personal lines, commercial lines, and life, health, and accident? So to the extent that you deal in any of these areas, can I ask each of you to offer an answer based on your own experience, starting with Paul?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit in my overview. There are a lot of companies out there, small and large, that are offering AI solutions for the product pricing and reserving that are good, right? They can save you some money, they can fine-tune your product, but in my opinion, if your product isn't really fit to your distribution channel, or your customer segmentation, or to your overall business strategy, you're fine-tuning within a business model that isn't necessarily working as well as it should. So while we're doing that for things that are triangulated by other means to be good products and solutions, we really want to look at the overall business and see how we can start to employ AI to be more of a business driver to get on the forefront of that disruption.
Thanks. Andy?
I'm going to give you two answers. But the first answer is low-hanging fruit. There's an explosion of external information, what would appear external to a claim, that you can start to incorporate into the predictive modelings that my teams are working on. That is just amazing. Storage is cheap. These linkages are not difficult. You can go out on the web and get information that is publicly available that can change the model that you're building. That being said, my first answer was going to be, I think the low-hanging fruit from Chubb's perspective lies in all the information we already have, right? So if we've got our data house in order and I've got my claims notes and my attachments all in one place in OCR, running the machine learning against those file notes is just producing some really amazing results, right? Where in the past you might have thought of some keywords and you wanted to see where they appeared, but letting the machine go and find the patterns just changes the way you do this in an amazing. You're getting amazingly huge uplift in the value of the model, the predictive models that we're building. We haven't added any data sources, right? We just changed the way we looked at the ones that were there. So that to me is where the natural language processing of information you already possess is going to change the industry as well.
Okay. Were your comments relevant to any particular line of business or the entire business you're responsible for?
I'm responsible for all of those from a claims perspective, and they relate to all of them. But each a little differently based on the external information, but yeah, it's universal.
Thanks. Amish, you always have the advantage of hearing everybody else's answers first, but please go ahead.
Yeah, so to pick up where Andy kind of said it is on the claims perspective, depending on how much money you have to invest, one thing to think about is there's a lot of niche vendors out there on personal lines that it may make sense just to outsource the machine learning or AI piece of it to them because they can do it for cheaper ROI. On commercial side, it's always a challenge. To what Andy said, if you have the benefit of having a state-of-the-art system, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. But part of all those challenges is always, your particular book, where are your biggest challenges, and then utilize AI and machine learning on those opportunities.
Thanks very much. Here's a comment I'm going to share with everybody, especially the panelists, because it's a compliment. So very interesting webinar. Thank you. So I'll share that with everybody. And then for our two claims data analytics experts, I think the focus on this question is for you. And here's the question from the audience. We work with claims organizations across, sorry, I lost my place. We work with claims organizations across the country and find a scarcity of people who understand data, starting with the basics of how to think about measures and how to use data. I'm wondering how the benefits to be derived from AI and machine learning can be realized. So this individual's perspective is that there are some obstacles within claims around data and the understanding of data. We'd all be very interested in your remarks, Andy and Amish, on that.
Sure, I'll go first. That is absolutely a true statement. I think there is a way around it, and again, there's people who understand data, and there's people who understand insurance, and there's very few people who understand data insurance or insurance data. I don't say it. And that's really, right, it is either you've got to find those people, and I think Amish said it earlier, right? If you can find that person with the curiosity who can drive in there, that's awesome. If you can't find that person, then you have to build that with the interconnections. And again, I'll go back to what I said I was going to talk about in Chicago. That's the key here, right, is that if I don't have that person who gets it all, then I've got to have people who can translate back and forth, because those people are few and far between. And when you get them, you should keep them, and you'll realize how much value they add to the organization. But you can't just get a data scientist to come and solve your insurance problems. I've tried it in several of different places that I've worked. It's a very difficult ask because the nuances of the insurance industry and the data in particular and the cross systems and how the coding has gone is very complicated. It's rarely consistent. I think Amish said, hey, if you have that super system, I'd love you to think I have it, so you can keep thinking that, but I have a bunch of legacy systems that I have to bring the data together for. That really requires someone who understands insurance information, and it is a difficult task. You're going to probably have to do it by getting multiple people together and sharing their experiences.
Okay, thanks. Amish, you have an additional comment?
Yeah. Yep. So this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Is you're getting a lot of folks that understand tools, technology around AI and machine learning, but we don't have the type of people so far that are versed in claims information. So one of the things I've been trying to challenge my folks to do is go handle a claim. I know you're a data scientist. Go handle a claim. Go get on the roof of that house, see what it is to handle one or two claims, spend a few weeks in the field, in the call center, so you gain an understanding of what is actually happening. But one thing to keep in mind is, to Andy's point, I say we have legacy systems, but we also have a lot of people that have been here a long time that understand how a claim is supposed to happen. When you think of AI, I could think of a couple people I work with on the business side that they are AI. You tell them a few facts about the claim, and they're like, you know what, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. I'm like, hold on, let me write it down so we can program that in. So you got to find those people, and sometimes, it's personalities conflict, but those are the people that are going to train your AI and machine learning models. And it is very hard to find people. And that is something I hear all the time is, oh, well, we went out and hired 10 data scientists. We don't have any results yet. Well, it's probably because one of the things we're doing here is my team sits with the claim leaders and the reps. We're not siloed off anywhere. We sit right next to them. We have a question about something. Half the people I talk to are like, well, that's the simple one. That's probably this or this. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So something to keep in mind when you think about paving that road.
Thank you. Thank you. Here's a question. I know I promise not to exhaust the presenters or the audience, but there's so many good questions here and we still have a bit of time. So please bear with me, and I appreciate everybody appreciates the great input here. This is more of an infrastructure technical question. What infrastructure is being used to run, for example, chatbots? And it goes on to say, would businesses need to use the cloud to get the necessary processing power? So anybody who wants to take that one at any level, please raise your voice, so to speak. I was afraid of that.
You want me to answer and say, I have people who do that?
No.
That's actually a great follow-up to the last question, right? I don't have that. There are the technical people who can do that. I wouldn't even venture the answer because I would be guessing.
And honest answers are the best answers. Thank you. Since nobody else spoke up, we'll move on and perhaps schedule a different separate webinar for some of the technical and infrastructure questions. Here's one on business metrics. What business metrics are considered measuring success with new digital approaches around chatbots, AI, machine language, etc.? And so I think I'll interpret, this question saying, are there any sort of key performance metrics that any of you are applying to your initiatives with AI and analytics that help you measure the effectiveness or the outcomes that you've referred to on the call? And Paul, let me start with you. Is there some metric way of measuring effectiveness for these technologies?
Yeah, I don't think it's any surprise. You really go back to basics. What is your efficiency? What is the accuracy or the quality with which you execute the task that you're doing, whether it's customer interaction or financial analytics? And overall, what is the experience with regard to the robustness of the information that, again, you either provide to the customer or you provide as analytics internally? So it's the same metrics. You just have to go back to basics and apply it to this concept.
Okay, Andy?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you can talk about things like, did my chatbot decrease call volume? Did it change the way my customer service reps are handling the claims, the calls that they are getting? Which is things that we are looking at those measures right now, but it's just too new from our perspective. And I think it was mentioned earlier, I'm not sure who said it right. It's the way that our customers want to interact. We're still really too young or too new in the process to really understand, the true value. I think you have to attack some of these things just so that you're prepared for the time when people want to sit on their couch and ask to pay their premiums using Alexa, right? You can't be flat-footed when that occurs, and so you've got to keep developing these technologies. But at least from a Chubb perspective, it's too new to really have a result that, I'd love to say yes, and we decreased the claim or the call volume by X%, and the customer satisfaction or the CSRs are doing this in their calls, but we don't have those metrics yet.
Okay, thanks. Amish, any additional comment?
Yeah, so yep, definitely very new piece of technology to always measure. But one thing you can always go back to, like Paul said, is back to the basics, is if you implemented some models, starting January 1st, here's the outcomes, you should be seeing that kind of transcend over the life of the claim. Maybe earlier settlements, lower settlements, close claims faster. So those metrics should start to see a change. But one thing that folks kind of get caught up in, and I've seen this in the data space a lot, is, okay, we built the team. What are the results? getting the data together and all this stuff takes time, and that's why you often hear people say, well, it's not delivering any results. So there's a lot to it before you can start saying it was a huge success.
Okay, thanks. During the discussion, I was wondering, there are other areas of insurance and claims specifically where customer experience as measured by NPS scores, by satisfaction scores, are very important and have been employed for some time. Is it too much early days? Is it too soon in the process for any of you to have any kind of early readings on what the results are in terms of NPS for customers who have interacted with any of your AI or chatbots? Does anybody have anything on that, or is that just too soon to ask?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't have that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else think, as I suspect, that the day will come when that will be important and valuable and available?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I know we're collecting it. I don't know what the answers are, though.
Okay. I wouldn't expect you to share the actual answers, but thanks. At least collecting it is step number one. I think we've really taken full advantage of all of our presenters, and on behalf of everybody who's registered today and listening later, I want to thank each of you, Paul, Andy, and Amish, very much for taking the time, and most importantly for sharing the valuable insights that you've accumulated over all the years you've been working in this industry. And just finally, remind everybody that our presenters today, along with many others and myself as chairman, are going to be at the Insurance AI and Analytics Summit, which is June 27th and 28th here in Chicago at the Radisson Blue Aqua. And we hope to see all of you there and to continue the information exchange, the learning, and the networking that's associated with these events. I don't know whether our sponsors have any closing comments, but I will ask here if there are, and if not, I will bid everybody a good day and wish you a good rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks all.